sort of malaise of being a very, very sickly little Alex over the last couple of weeks. And sickly I was too. Finally got a bit of something out of the NHS, didn't I? Did have to wait for about 1,000 years in A&E. That was quite a spectacle. But anyway, I digress. I've been sitting there sort of feeling a bit sorry for myself, reading through the news, and I'm like the rest of the public, how on earth has Angela Rayner, a woman who, as far as I know, right, bought a council house after doing something fiddly, then all she's done since is work for a union and work in politics, which these aren't well-paid jobs. I don't know, if you get to the top of a union, you get quite a handsome sum. But in theory, you're not exactly big-balling it around like some sort of barrister in the City of London. So how on earth does she seem to have the cash money to have 3 homes?
It's a very, very good question, and I wish I knew the answer. I think if we did, she probably wouldn't be a member of Parliament for much longer. People who are sports fans might remember that interview that the Chelsea and other manager Jose Mourinho gave once, where he was asked a question. I think maybe he was tempted to say something disobliging about a referee, and he said, "I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble, so I prefer not to speak." And I'm almost tempted to try and say something like that, rather than cast aspersions as to what I'm sure is a totally morally righteous and decent woman who has definitely not done anything untoward in order to get hold of all these houses you talk about. And the fact is that one of them, at least, will be paid for by the taxpayer, because MPs get second homes. I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't necessarily all want them to have to live in a kind of grate under the road or something outside Parliament. But she also, as Deputy Prime Minister, gets access to what they call a grace and favour home. So the Prime Minister gets Chequers, and then some of the other top ministers get to share, I think it's Dorney Wood and Chevening and a few other of these lovely stately homes that have been given over to the nation by various wealthy people who used to live in them. Fair enough. And now she's got hold of another one as well. I don't know how she's managed to get hold of this money. I wouldn't mind it. Of course, she is the woman who, when interviewed recently about homes for asylum seekers, said, yeah, there are loads of houses everywhere, don't worry about it. Well, it doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like a massive housing crisis that she's supposed to be in her main job in charge of fixing, and it looks like she's actually given up on any attempt to build a decent level of new houses. Yet she still finds one for herself. It's curious.
£800,000 flat. I mean, what's she living like? Jeffrey Epstein or something? Like, what's all that about? £800,000 flat down that neck of the woods. That's a lot of money, sunshine. It doesn't make any sense to me. And do you know what I think that we should do? I don't know if it was my mum who said this the other day. Someone said it and I nicked it. You know when you hear someone say something really clever and really good and you think, well, I'm putting that one in the bank and passing it off as my own. Someone said the other day, do you know what we should do? We should get all the MPs' second homes, put all the Migos down there, go like, right, your second home's in London, all the Migs are going to go there now, all right, yeah? Because you want them in HMOs, don't you? And then we should put all the MPs in that Britannia Hotel down Canary Wharf.
Or the Bibby Stockholm, and that would be fun for them, wouldn't it? This actually happened in the United States. The Biden government, the last administration in the States, was taking the southern border so unseriously, or in fact they actually just completely opened the floodgates and had these people come pouring in, that the very, very sound right-wing governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, took all of these migrants who were coming in, stuck them all in Texas state buses, and bussed them all the way up to Martha's Vineyard, New York City, and all the kind of lefty parts of the country that said, migrants, welcome here, we love them so much, and dumped them in the middle of some of the most expensive, fancy, lefty, liberal places. And after a not very long period of time, the kind of working class people who didn't want that in the first place in New York City and other places were obviously up in arms about this. I thought that was a very clever way to do things. Maybe we should do that as well. I'm sure that Angela Rayner wouldn't mind taking one of these wonderful people, who I'm sure she thinks they're wonderful people, in. I seem to remember Yvette Cooper, now the Home Secretary, when she was in the shadow role, she said that she would take somebody in, and then she never did. Weird, isn't it?
But also, I mean, it's the audacity. I don't know whether this woman is just the most conceited, arrogant piece of work we've had sitting on the green benches, or the thickest person, or perhaps the toxic combination of the two. But you are the blimmin' housing secretary, right? We got housing shortage. You're the one taxing people on all their second homes and all of that. You're saying, oh, we ain't got a housing shortage, but you know damn well we have. And you ain't building enough to hit your own targets. And in the middle of all of this, you're probably one of the most Post sort of reported on and photographed. You're the Deputy Prime Minister, for crying out loud. And in the middle of this, you go, rather than just wait a few years until it's my retirement, when there's no longer a Labour government because we screwed up the country so much, and then buy your second home and go tooling around down on the beach in a dinghy, ha. I mean, it's almost like some sort of sketch now from the thick of it. But in the middle of all this, you think that is the moment that you go and flash 800 grand's worth of your cash monies on getting your home? Is there nobody advising this woman going, do you know what, Ange, probably not a good look. The optics on that are probably not really very ingratiating, love.
You're quite right. I mean, the more you think about this, let's go through this. So there's a housing crisis, and she just bought a third house for herself. There's a small boat crisis, so she photographs herself sitting in the small boat. There are also now, I think people who are watching the live stream can see this, she's puffing away on a vape, which is exactly one of the things that this government is going to try and ban you from being able to enjoy any of this kind of stuff. And she's showing off with it there as well. And then she's necking a glass, a wine or something out on the beach. And some people going, oh, it's so iconic, so iconic. No, I don't think so. When the United States of America gets J.D. Vance, who is a Yale-educated lawyer, tech entrepreneur, former decorated Marine with an IQ bigger than I can count, and we get Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, I just think that she is a kind of middle-class, lefty-lovey, Islington idea of what a working Brit is actually like. But Alex, from our background in Gloucester, you know that actually normal working class people who work their nuts off to get one house don't act in the kind of uncouth ways that she does. I wouldn't imagine that anyone you've ever met from when we were growing up in Gloucester would scream across a room that political opponents theirs were a, quote, bunch of scum, right? And yet Angela does it. And some people in London, in the fancy bits, go, oh, God, it's so authentic, isn't it? I just think she's crass and rude and that we deserve better as a country.
How did we end up with such a dreadful bunch of human beings sitting around that cabinet? I mean, seriously, it's like a who's who of failure. A lot of them are just either ideologically insane, they need their heads checked, they've got nasal problems, half of them can't seem to speak because they've got permanent blocked up noses. I don't know if they all share the same hairdresser sponsored by Lord Ali, because they all look like they're sort of made by Mattel with their weird square fringes and like Sir Keir Starmer's Elnet immovable barnet. But these people are also just so bang average. They're dreadful.
Absolutely right. And there is a really serious point to this as well, which is, the Tony Blair Institute, I think it is, we've got 700 people working there, had, I'm told and reported, a big role to play in picking lots of the new Labour MPs. And they knew they were going to win big, and they had a kind of iron grip over MP selection. And yet they managed to pick a load of non-entities. The only thing they've actually managed to do, which was to rebel on the tiniest welfare saving that will go no short way towards bankrupting the country, by the way. And the only conscience things they've voted on is to kill granny and to kill 9-month-old babies just before they get born, and yet no other idea. So what we need to see instead, whether it's Reform or the Conservatives or a bit of both, or definitely both need to try this, is when it comes to candidate selection, to get different kinds of people, to get really high quality people for whom perhaps being an MP isn't the best job they're ever going to have. And then even if they only serve one term or so, one term is perhaps we've just about got enough time for this to be all we need to save Britain, and to have a load of high quality people who aren't going to be flappable about anything, who are going to understand that there's a plan that needs to be executed and delivered and carried out, and then can go on with the rest of their lives. But it's really, really serious that we get a load of high quality people. And we do that, by the way, we should pay them a lot more, or at least peg the MPs' pay to the level of the economy, and that would be a fun way to do things, because if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. But we really, as you say, Alex, have a really elite talent problem. For most of history, the most talented people would at some point go into government. Even Isaac Newton was drafted in to help sort out the post office once upon a time. And that's what we need. Oh yeah, and that we had that in America as well recently, with the tech bros deciding that things were so bad they'd have to stop building, super duper robots or whatever, and put their shoulder to the wheel. And we need the best of Britain to do that in the next election too, for the Reform Party and the Conservative Party, whatever happens with those two.
Do you know what, James? As you know, I'm planning on setting up, in the process of establishing, a right-wing common sense enclave, a utopia out in our old home county. And I do hope you're going to come visit me, and you won't leave again. You'll just be like, why am I still living in London? Why am I down Brent?
We could do this show from the countryside. I think it'd be nice, right? I think people would appreciate a kind of bucolic scene in the background rather than the remnants of the Notting Hill Carnival outside my window where people have been round stabbing each other and all the rest of it.
I'll tell you what, I have got the best pub, a dangerous 30-second walk from my front door. I went there last night and I had the best welcome from all the locals. It's one of those pubs where everybody knows everybody and knows everybody. And as soon as I walked in, they were like, oh, you're the new girl. Oh, are you that new girl? Are you that new girl? Everyone's buying me a drink, being really friendly. Oh, lovely, amazing, proper community spirit. But the other wonderful, reassuring thing is instead of a MyGo hotel on my doorstep, no, when I open my front door in the morning, most of my neighbours only know how to say one word. And that word is moo. And it's just...
By the way, before that pub opens, if you're still thirsty for a tipple, my friend Simon has Phoenix Wines in Cirencester. He's a great man. It's a great wine shop. You and anybody else within 100 miles should go and visit there as well, before the pub opens, of course.
Oh, there you go. I'll make sure I check it out next time I go into the big, bright lights of the town. Mr. James Price, it's been wonderful having you on the programme.